Welcome to Season 3 of the Dance Reel podcast. I'm Kate Histon. This episode was sponsored by Master Dancer Mindset. Know yourself, be yourself, and express yourself on and off the stage. Today I am joined by Georgina Pazcoguin, dancer, author, and advocate for change in the performing arts. Known as the Rogue Ballerina, Georgina has performed as a soloist with New York City Ballet and on Broadway in productions such as Cats and On the Town. She is the author of Swan Dive, The Making of a Rogue Ballerina, co-founder of Final Bow for Yellowface, an initiative dedicated to ending outdated stereotypes in ballet. Her work bridges artistry with activism, challenging traditions while celebrating the possibilities of dance as an inclusive, evolving art form. This is such a special interview and Georgina shares so much. She's a real game changer and someone I feel we are very lucky advocating for the future of dance and ballet. Welcome to my podcast, Georgina. It's such an honour and a privilege to be interviewing you. I was very excited about this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here too, finally.
I've finished your memoir a little while ago and I'm doing a reread. It is incredible. And I just want to say thank you for all that you share. And as part of my first question, I just wanted to know what inspired you beginning telling your story. What was that like? How did it evolve into you deciding to write about your journey in dance?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that my voice is still recovering from this latest bout of COVID. Thank you so much for your kind words. It still means so much. How did I come to getting to a place where I felt like I could share my story? I think everyone reaches a point where the world around them is happening. And you're trying to go steadily along and steadily along and steadily along and find your track within that world. And you're reaching barriers and and breaking through glass ceilings. And all of a sudden, you realize that the game you've been playing is not the same that other people have been playing. And it was the realization that I was the first Asian American woman to ever be promoted out of the corps of New York City Ballet. That was one of those pings, being like, whoa, for real? Like, even it was a surprise to me as someone who didn't grow up being steeped in a you are different. The only time I've ever been made to feel like perhaps I don't look the same as other ballerinas was this transition from, School of American Ballet to the New York City Ballet, where they wanted me to conform, assimilate into this massive corps de ballet. And just all of a sudden, attributes that were beyond my control were being pointed out as being, hindrances to me having a successful career. Do you want me to pause? Because my dog is drinking water. And she's a spicy lady. Her name's Jet for Joan Jett. And she will just find a way to insert herself into Zooms.
We will embrace her and love her, so it's all fine.
So this journey first was the promotion in 2013. It was also this struggle to even get into the corps de ballet of New York City Ballet. I noticed that my other apprentices in my cohort there were no issues with their pathway towards employment. And I didn't think of it as, I wasn't comparing myself. And I think that's a great thing to note, that I was not looking at their paths and being like, it's easier for them. Why is it harder for me? I just was like, this is the path I have. So I was working toward it. And then once I felt comfortable in the space of being in New York City Ballet, and I'd had the time to prove to the institution, to my employers, that I may not look like the other dancers, but I have something completely singular to offer in terms of artistry, and that no matter what, who has inhabited a role that I have been gifted to dance on stage, it will inherently be different. So there was just a culminating effect in order to gain this courage to put pen to paper, this courage to tell story. And then there was also just the realization of the Me Too movement, and then having, a lot of my thoughts and fears realized And
Yeah.
then understanding that I can't, and reckoning with my own complicit nature in continuing that behavior and continuing that environment. It
Yeah.
felt like the way that I could really jump in and take action is just
Yeah.
sharing my story and sharing my truth.
I'm so grateful you have, because when you're so brave and there's this innate thing of having to push through and just speak up, man, it must feel so scary at the time. Yet the gift you're giving so many ballerinas and helping reshape more inclusivity and the art form and breaking old molds, it is so needed in the world right now. So I just think it's incredible what you've done.
Well, thanks. I mean, it was terrifying. I
Yeah.
remember the night before, in the process of creating the book, and I had a wonderful collaborator, Paula Vitali. She's my reference to outside of the world. I have my
Yeah.
story from within the dance world, but I also wanted this book to resonate with people who don't dance, people who want a peek into what our lives are like in the dance world, and not give it the Black Swan treatment, although
Yeah.
that's the title is a play on Black
Yeah.
Swan, and
It's a cool title.
thanks. That was a 2. I feel like I have my best thoughts at, like, 3 in the morning. It was like a
Yeah.
ping awake, being like,
Yeah.
"What is this memoir gonna be called? Like, what is this?"
Yeah.
Um, and I wanted it to be funny and true to my nature, which is this, like, I am a goofy person that happens to do this really elite art,
Yeah.
and I think it's finding the joy of dance and the joy of laughing. I think that was, like, really important in sharing the story, but also making it accessible to people outside of our, like, little, community of dance.
And it is, because I sent it to my friend Kelly. Hi, Kelly. I sent it to her months ago, and like the recommendation to read it.
Mm.
And I was talking about it. I was like, I really want to interview this lady on my podcast. And she's read it and she said, she's got nothing to do with dance. She's not in the dance industry. She said, I love it. Everything. I was hooked on it. It's so real. It was engaging. There was not one part of the book where I was like, okay, I'll pick it up later. And yeah, I agree. So from an outside perspective, a non-dancer, it is so captivating and it's real and it's honest. And yeah, I just love it. And one thing which I noticed as well is the beautiful nurturing family you came from. Do you feel like that's helped navigate through to your experiences?
Oh, absolutely. I am from Central Pennsylvania, and I lovingly refer to it as Pennsyltucky. It is not as metropolitan at all. And my father's Filipino, my mother is mixed Italian, and I am one of 6 children within that family. So there are 3 boys, 3 girls. I'm obviously the middle child, which is why I chose this, like, front center stage 0
Yeah.
lifestyle
Yeah.
to garner attention for myself. But also, I think having this upbringing that was rooted in the sensibility that, like, my brothers and sisters and I, like, we left the house during the summer at 7 a.m. and then we came back at 5. It was
Mm.
also a different kind of world to grow up in.
Yeah.
So we were allowed to, like, leave, and we didn't go far. We were just in the neighborhood. We were
Yeah.
neighborhood kids, and we
Yeah.
ran around. We got into trouble. We, like,
Yeah.
stole rhubarb from the neighbor and climbed trees, and then had those experiences of being able to be independent while still under a parent's watchful eye.
Yeah.
And then my father's also a retired Army Reserve, and so he spent a lot of time leaving. And so I was watching the discipline of my father, who was a general surgeon, which you can no longer attain that sort of, everything is
Yeah.
so specialized now in the medical field. And seeing Christmases where he would get a page and
Yeah.
would have to leave, and seeing that discipline and that service to others, I think it has really impacted my ability for discipline and how my mother has given to me in ways, like, she is not a stage mom, but she was very much present. Like, she's helped with the costume, she sewed, she drove me and my best friend Miranda every single day at 4:30 to ballet, picked us up. I can't say that I'm, like, the closest to all of my siblings because
Yeah.
I was so siphoned off into this ballet world.
Yeah.
I left home when I was 15, 16.
Yeah.
And this book was a reckoning for my family too, into how
Yeah.
much I didn't tell them
Mm.
what was going on when I
Yeah.
went to School of American Ballet and how much I hid. Because, some of the conversations that I had with my parents following the book publishing was, had we known about this, we would have yanked you out of there so
Yeah.
fast. So it was like protecting them. And I do think they are inherently so proud of what I have become and who I
Mm.
am. And it was also just really telling that the sibling I'm closest with, my baby sister, she was like, I understand you so much more after reading your book. And
Yeah.
who would have thought that it would take me, ledgingly finding my voice. I've always had this voice through movement,
Yeah.
but like taking these thoughts in my head and putting them to paper that and articulating them in a way that someone can read them and digest them
Yeah.
without maybe the intensity of my delivery
Yeah.
helps someone understand better who I am.
Yeah.
It was an interesting magical thing that like it helps bridge the gap between me leaving home and then reinserting back into my family life, post ballet career.
Yes. Yeah.
But
And
I should correct that. Sorry, I hate to
no,
like interrupt you, but
no, go.
post New York City Ballet career, I'm definitely not done dancing.
Yeah. No, and you've also dancing on Broadway, and what also are you doing now with your dancing?
I am embracing choosing projects that work for me, that work for my body right now. I'm 40 years old, and
Yeah.
as we know, bodies change, and be able to curate my artistic projects to take care of my body rather than, just be a cog in
Yeah.
the big system.
Yeah.
So I have a project coming up in the UK actually at the end of November. It's called Songs for Sanctuary.
Yeah.
It is a benefit performance that will raise funds for Ukrainian law students who cannot practice right now.
Yeah.
So it's a collaboration with a dear friend of mine who's a barrister in London, David Williams, myself, and a bunch of other artists that he's collaborated with and collected to
Yeah.
lend voice to what I think is a wonderful cause. I had a little workshop planned to build the sketch or outline of Swan Dive, the one woman show.
Yeah. Cool.
So, which would blend a lot of my theater storytelling ability and also the dance. So
Yeah.
I really want to focus on that, like coming
Yeah.
into the end of 2025 and 2026. I'm putting that onto the universe that like it's going to happen. Maybe the next time we speak, I'll be at the Fringe
Totally.
doing my one woman show.
I
So
would come over to watch that.
I mean, wouldn't that be? I just see it. I see it in my mind's eye. I have this wonderful sketch, but it's also that's another terrifying thing
Yeah.
because it's another layer of vulnerability to meet myself now. Um, and then in the immediate, I'm doing a really cool, just off the walls bonkers project called Houses of Zodiac. And it was a pandemic film that we shot in 2021. It's a collaboration with National Sawdust. Paola Prestini is an amazing female composer. Her husband, Jeffrey, is a world renowned cellist, and a collab between a Buto dancer, Dai
Oh,
Matsuoka, and
nice.
myself. But we choreographed a parada that was, he couldn't travel to the States. So he
Yeah.
choreographed in Japan. I choreographed where we were in Massachusetts. And we ended up superimposing the two pieces together in the
Oh, wow.
film where we danced this duet. And then we did it live later in 2022 in LA. And
Yeah.
now we're doing it. We have a great opportunity to reunite, revive the piece live again, but with a complete change of scenery. I'm dancing in a catacomb in Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, and
Wow.
it's going to be the creepiest thing
Yeah.
ever and so cool. I can't. So today, actually, after we get off the call, I have to kind of re-choreograph my steps because I can't be doing like grand jetés in a catacomb. It's not big
Yeah.
enough. So
So it sounds like, your experience has just really expanded you into so many more artistic and creative endeavors. Looking at younger dancers coming up through the ranks, I'm thinking around about 15, 16, 17 to 18. Do you have any advice for them and their families when they're about to go into any kind of pre-professional training?
I take on a certain number of special students a year to mentor,
Yeah.
and it's always been a word of mouth kind of thing. And would say be wary of institutions who start with negatives.
Yeah.
And you don't have to absorb every negative that you hear. You
Mm.
can take the criticism, you can take the correction, and you could absorb it. For me, a lot of the criticism I have faced, I have been able to reframe in my mind and be like, oh, that came out differently
Yeah.
than what I think they intended. And then also to not be afraid to buck up against no. I
Yeah.
think my
Yeah.
entire career is hearing the word no and being like, well, I'm going to make that no a yes. I'm going to see how far I can get towards a yes. And sometimes
Yeah.
just as a maybe, sometimes it remains a no. I think that determination to set a goal and reach that goal, it is the foundation for my career transition into more stage and screen acting
Yeah.
because you hear even more no. There's
Yeah.
even more stereotypes in the diaspora of casting when it comes to Asian faces.
Yeah.
Like this still is not considered Asian enough, but
Yeah.
also definitely not white. So where do you fit in a world that wants to put you in a neat category once again? And
Yeah.
I would say to parents and children to not be afraid to push against a no when you hear a no.
Yeah. And in your dance journey, what moments felt most isolating and what helped you through them?
I'll answer in two parts. When I was younger in the company, and very much one of the only, if not the only, depending on season, woman of color in the ballet, I think there were moments that were really isolating when I was performing Chinese and I was feeling all these feelings of like, this doesn't feel right. Like making it feels like making fun of Asian character, Asian culture. And I didn't have anyone to talk to. There were friends of mine who were men in the company, but the experience wasn't different. As we all know, men in the ballet world have a different trajectory, and it's not to take away any of the hardships and difficulties that they experience. But in that moment in time, for me to go to someone who didn't have the worry of being replaced by another female, like instantly, I
Yeah.
felt like I couldn't express some of my fears. And so that was another like big release of letting these things that a baby Gina was holding down in
Yeah.
the practice of telling that story. It's just like, it's a really holistic letting go of putting down that weight, like just physically putting it down
Yeah.
and then being able to move forward. And I think now, like, what makes me feel isolated in my experience is that it's happening more and more that people are rising to the occasion and taking on this battle cry. And you don't have to be, I founded Final Ball for Yellowface with my best friend, Phil Chan,
Yeah.
and that has now expanded into Gold Standard Arts. Sometimes I feel alone in that, like, everyone turns to me and I feel the weight and the sacrifice of being so open and
Yeah.
forthright with my voice so that this work does not come without pushback, without the negative. So it
Yeah.
might see like, I think people see like my social media presence, which I'm like not as active on because I'm focusing on life. Like I, eh, I think they see like this bright, shiny person, but there's also these moments of like struggle where I am reckoning with the systems I have pushed up against
Yes.
and that are like, okay, well, fine. Like, if you don't want to play our game, then you won't play at all. Know that that's not the solution overall. And I stand right. I go to sleep at night with my mind right, my
Yeah.
soul right. But it's that I will say has felt isolating in like,
Yeah.
oh, should I have done things differently?
Yeah.
Would I be more sound financially? Would I be more sound artistically if I didn't, you know, if I didn't shake the tree so hard?
I'm really
And
glad you shook the tree.
well, thank you. I ultimately am really glad too. I am so lucky to get to have a career in dance, to have
Yeah.
reached this pinnacle of career, to have broken this glass ceiling. I want to give back to the art form in any way, shape, and form I can. I have no idea where that comes from. You know, everyone in my family is in some sort of medical field.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I chose a different path, but maybe this is my acts of service
Yeah.
in a different kind of way. And, you know, I always say like, hey, my door is open if you're someone that's really struggling. I've been through the gamut of things. I don't have all the answers, but like once we've connected, you can always message me. I am here. I want to be someone who can be a reference to someone who's been through it because I didn't have that growing up as a
Yeah.
pre-professional, as a professional. I
Yeah.
want to provide that.
Mm. No, I appreciate your advocacy and speaking to the truth of, I'm just going to say, coercive systems, because that's something that we talk about on the Dance Real podcast, and just how sometimes the nature of even dance schools, companies are still way too traditional and haven't evolved. And so for me, I actively Googled who in the dance industry, what ballerina out there is having these honest conversations, and your name came up at the top. And so,
Oh, wow.
I don't think, I just did a season 2 in my podcast and spoke a little bit about my story. And I had this vulnerability hangover and a little bit of anxiety afterwards. And I went, this feels lonely. Like, it actually feels lonely. I haven't done what you've done. Like that's wow, mega. It made me appreciate, wow, I get also the other side to that. And so it would be nice, for you to know that people are grateful for your work. And I think that that's a really important giving back. Just those, I've read your book. It's amazing. Thank you. And in our Australian audience, there's been a few cases this year about inappropriate teachers that have been reported, and now teachers going to court. And it's a really heartbreaking thing. And so I think it's so important to speak out about ill treatment. But as you said, your parents were like, well, why didn't you come to us? And even on that systemic thing with even younger students within dance studios, and, I just think, what stops people at the time from speaking out?
I'll be honest, I was playing into the system. I knew that I had this goal. And if I spoke up at that point, that goal's not going to happen. You know, there was a moment where the book was about to be published, and it's like, here's the real weight of it. You can stay and you can play the politics game, and you
Yeah.
may very well get promoted to principal, or you do this route and you
Yeah.
just see what happens. And you see what
Yeah.
happens is not going to involve that
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. I wish I could just say, ego, calm the F down. But like some days I wake up and I'm like, ugh, I'm such a failure. I wish I could have reached that last pinnacle. And then I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Everyone literally thinks that you are a principal dancer anyway. And it's a title that you do not get to take with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any cachet outside of the world of the microcosm in which it was given. So I can rationalize in my head, but it's also like, what an honor. What an
Yeah.
honor would have been to do that. So the road to being true to oneself is not just like once you make the decision, it's sunshine and rainbows. I'm human.
Yeah.
I very much go through those feelings of like, okay, what now? How do I
Yeah.
redefine myself now? What we don't speak enough is dancers of a certain age and transitioning from a professional ballet company into freelance, into a a semblance of normal life. I co-produced Here Lies Love, and he was a former dancer with Momix and then switched into a career of puppeteering. We're talking about the assessment of your body. That as a professional dancer, that you wake up every morning and you do this assessment. And as we're thinking of like now we're both in our 40s, there are big tests that we need to get done medically and all that stuff, and embracing age and change and what is normal and what is not normal.
Yeah.
And my friend was just like, oh, I used to be able to scan and just be like, oh, that pain is fine because that's just joint. I'll get that fixed later. Or that's just muscle. And being able to do that assessment. And he's like, what happens though when I can't trust my facilities to
Yeah.
know the difference? And it was such a weird, nerdy conversation between dancers that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And like, I buttressed that conversation with like, it's been wild. One of my I work with another dancer friend, and he has founded this business called Vows and Bows, and we create wedding dances
Wow.
for dancers, non-dancers alike. And finding someone who has never been asked to assess their body before and navigating that conversation. Sometimes I leave first sessions and think, no, no, but was I being too elitist in the words I use? But then by the third, they're always like, no, you're a really great teacher because you helped us understand where to put your weight forward, where to put your weight back. Has given them a gift that's beyond their first dance. And so
Yeah.
it's been super interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
shout out to Andrew and Vows and Vows because that is also really cool work.
speaking of our bodies, reading your memoir, when you're in the company, you were directed to only have 720 calories per day at one point in your career, just to lose a couple of pounds, which clearly you didn't need to lose. And is that still going on for dancers in companies that you know of?
That aesthetic still exists. And if the
Mm,
aesthetic is being awed over in a space in which body type is not part of the actual demands of the job, it of course it's going to have an effect.
and it
And
had an effect on you. You know, you got an injury not long after that. You were
yeah,
very open in your memoir about feeling hangry.
yeah,
You
angry.
say hangry, and that is a very real thing, and dancers are athletes, and they need their fuel. I was astounded.
Yeah, there has been evolution in the sense that weight training
Yeah,
and training in general and cross training can only help a career, can
yeah,
extend a ballet career. I think that one of the reasons why, God willing, where's some wood I can knock on, that I
yeah,
still am able to, I did tear my ACL. I've broken
yeah,
so many bones. Um, I think the reason why I'm still able to get up and move and be able to dance, I would still say this is like prime artistic years. I'm not a
yeah,
20-year-old. I can't like just get up in the morning and whack my head.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like, I think my ability to still be able to do the damn thing is a dedication to cross training and an
yeah,
ever curiosity in how food is fuel. I find
yeah,
myself thinking, how can I fuel for this coming up? How do I not get myself in a place where I am hangry because that doesn't help
yeah,
anyone?
yeah,
And how do I inevitably avoid this crash in energy because I feel like there's so much to do right now. And so I want to be able to fuel this body that has been so incredible to me.
yeah,
The bodies are so incredible. They really are. And that doesn't mean that I don't have my vices, but like to be able to rehab a body from physically being broken to leaping off the floor and approaching a studio work today and looking at myself being like, wow, this is incredible. It's incredible that like I could spend a month and a half in the Philippines and like be doing moderate workouts and then come back and it's time to get set up so that we can do 2 shows a night for 3 nights and not come out injured
yeah,
and put in that work and see how quickly the body shifts and change. She knows this lifestyle.
yeah,
And I think the body is very much comfortable there. So that muscle memory of how to train, it
yeah,
gives her a little bit of nice adrenaline, but it's like respect. I think it's just finding
yeah,
respect for your instrument, which is different. You
yeah.
cannot compare your
No.
body to someone else.
No. We had Dr. Stephanie Podrick on, and she's such an advocate for companies to actually change, stop putting that pressure on dancers to calorie deficit. She's like, they're going to get injury, and it happens. So she works with dancers in companies on that, and I've learned so much from her. But just yeah, we get so used to it, so used to the stick thin. I don't even want to use the word traditional, old look, old school look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
So,
way to be ethereal without looking like a ghost.
yes. And one of your quotes in your book, sorry, I just love this line, where you say, I could be recognized, but that doesn't mean I'm visible. Wow. That was a really powerful line.
A lot of people can resonate with that line. And thank you very much just because the Emmys just happened and visibility and speaking up at the end of the day, it's one moment in time. And are we really visible? social media in general, like with a grain of salt. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's okay just to train.
Yeah.
You don't have to video yourself. You don't have to
Yes.
like subject yourself to like showing me what your warm up day is. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Train. Put the
Yeah.
energy there because you might be visible, but it's not working towards what your goal is to get on stage and give of your gift. And
Yeah.
it's okay for some of that stuff to be private.
I love that.
I think everyone has their own reasons as to why they
Yeah.
do social media in terms of like business and branding and advertising. But also, it seems like the pendulum has swung so far this way.
Yeah.
Let's just find some
Yeah.
normalcy with it. So it's not the end all be all. I really have to talk about it because I think it was wild. I
Yeah.
was at a performance in Manila of Into the Woods with dear friends Ariel
Yeah.
Jacob and Lea Salonga, and a number of other really talented Filipino actors. And it was and I see this happening in American audiences too. And it just was, the show came down. I stand up. I'm not the best audience member. I mean, like, I would prefer to be on stage, but
Yeah.
like, I'm clapping
Yeah.
and I'm noticing that I'm not hearing any applause. And I look around and the entire theater, I'm talking the entire theater, has phones out
No.
and they're videoing the bows. And I'm so confused because that's the exchange. We give the gift,
Yeah.
you applaud, right? Or is that just
Yeah.
my ego? Is that my ego?
No.
After having this conversation over and over with a bunch of people being, maybe
It's
I'm wrong.
manners. It's
I don't,
manners.
well, I don't think any of the artists really cared, but still, I want that reaction. You are here with me physically in this
Yeah.
ephemeral moment of time.
Yeah.
So if anyone listens to this and you find yourself whipping out your phone instead of clapping, at least like woo as you record
Yeah.
or like take some bits and still clap because I
Yeah.
think it's so important to also be present.
Yeah.
Be present.
Mm.
Be present in the exchange of that moment. It's not coming back.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, social media and reposting the bows, that's a whole nother level of gratitude and it's wonderful and it does have its place. But I think also let's not forget that exchange is something that's so much, at least for me, it's
Yeah.
so magical between
It
artist
is.
and audience.
It's the full circle. It feels like it's not finished without the applause, you know? Yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's just like I'm an old lady and things are different now. But like,
No,
I
I
don't know.
don't think so. No, the exchange is really important. And it's like when you meet someone new, you'll put out your hand and shake their hand. There's that exchange, and it's really important.
Some of my favorite moments in my career is the sense memory of finishing a show and
Yeah.
hearing the reaction of an audience who has put their phone down for 2.5 hours and has left their lives and has been there with this company. And we're about to leave that sacred circle. And I think I just want to like prolong that sacred circle for as much as possible.
Because you've worked. Like you worked so, so hard in classes, in rehearsals. It's not just that one moment of the performance, it's the training. Yeah, I think a big clap is well deserved, you know?
Right.
And that's got nothing to do with ego. I think that's just manners, right? And respect for the arts.
I also always laugh at the people who will skip the bows altogether and like run to go get the cab. And I'm like, you're not going to get home any faster. Just not going to happen. Oh.
What are some of the lingering effects dancers experience after leaving institutions like NYCB?
Some of the lingering effects is for me, I like jokingly refer it to Stockholm syndrome in the sense you crave autonomy. You want autonomy. You want all of this control. You want to know, like, I can only speak to what the New York City Ballet schedule is. I don't know
Yeah.
any other company's schedule. But for the longest time, it was one day in advance of getting your schedule, and then it was 2 days. I think the joy of being, I have an entire calendar in which I can schedule,
Yeah.
which is exhilarating and also can be like, "Huh, how do I do that though?" So that has been, I think, the lingering effects of like, secretly craving for someone to tell you what to do
Yeah, right.
and knowing that's normal. That's
Yep.
okay. that's a process and to give it change. One of the physical experiences I had that was wild, and it just like goes into my ever curiosity like about my body, was for 20 plus years, my body produced a certain amount of lactic acid.
Yeah.
And when I left New York City Ballet, obviously I wasn't performing in the same sort of like intensity, nor was I training for a while. And, I deserved that break.
Yeah.
Um, but my body was still producing the same amount of lactic acid at the same rate because, hello, it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
So, and I noticed that there was like almost like a toxicity buildup of that lactic acid.
Ah.
So it was spurring for me to like get back into the pool because I needed to expend that. And so keeping note that there are going to be these physiological changes that
Mm.
need attention because letting the body recalibrate to what energy needs are. I didn't think of it. It just happened. I was like, why do I feel
Yeah.
so crazy? I felt
Yeah.
like, just like jittery. It's because I had all this lactic acid. And wasn't getting the blood flow moving enough to like pass that through the system. I think another is, and this is for everyone. I mean, there's a lot of dancers that when they leave the company, they're done dancing
Yeah.
for life. There's also where the category that I fall in is that was one chapter of my artistic career, and now I'm on to
Yeah.
the different chapter, and I am not done dancing. However, I am not in the company setting.
Yeah.
And I think that shift into losing the privilege of a studio available to you 24 hours
Yeah.
that's heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me. And I have since found many homes and have calibrated myself to be able to train. I still, if I had it all my way, I would have like a little apartment that I shared with a few other dancer friends that we could like change into a studio, and I would have access to a studio whenever I wanted to get in there
Yeah.
and jump around. That is studio time is precious for me. And
Yeah.
then I think also just classical music. I have such a relationship with classical music, and that was
Mm.
something that I mourned
Yeah. Wow.
so intensely to get up every morning to hear live music played for your class or
Yeah.
to get to hear an orchestra play every day. What a gift that is. And to know
Yeah.
that there's a sense of loss. And whether or not you clock it, it's something that's
Mm.
beautiful. And it takes me, I need to actively plan when I get my doses of live music.
Yeah.
And it's really special. There's some really special things about being in a company, but also there's a whole nother world and assets to life that you gain moving on from the institution.
Yeah.
And stick with community.
Yeah.
Reach out to dancers who have done this process
Yeah.
and acknowledge that you still exist. You still are a dancer, even if you're not dancing.
Yeah.
That no one takes your experience away from you ever.
It's beautiful. And how can the dance world better support young dancers who feel like they don't fit the mold?
I mean, Phil and I have been trying to create spaces in which younger dancers can connect and interact with each other. I know that New York City Ballet at one point even had like a mentorship program.
Yeah.
I think instead of perpetuating that, like the hierarchical systems of ballet companies, I think older dancers, if you are someone that's open and can be a sounding board for dancers, offer that. And
Yeah.
make that clear to younger dancers because remember when you were young and you were just bright eyed, mushy tailed, and just like, we're like, I'm in the New York City Ballet. This is amazing. If I had an older dancer to be like, it's going to be okay, like that would have been that sort of culture change. I think that's super beneficial to younger dancers.
Uh, yeah. We talk a lot about being aware of people's beliefs, their backgrounds, their experiences, and teachers having a little bit more sensitivity around their languaging and without necessarily losing the rigor of the hard work of classical ballet. So it's not completely swinging the other way either. So yeah, where is that line, of if we could call it safe dance practice in terms of healthy dance teaching pedagogies?
It is a discipline. Like you're not going to attain the pinnacles of the art form if you don't put in the work.
Yeah.
It requires the 10,000 plus hours. Things worth getting do require some sacrifice, but knowing the line of what is too much.
Yeah.
Advocating for change in our art form. I think it's incredible
Yeah.
how many other dancers are standing up and,
Yeah.
using their voices.
And what does change look like now that everything you've learned, everything you've experienced? What would a healthy company look like?
I think change is happening. For every step forward, there will be steps back.
What's an ideal company look like?
I feel like you come in and you're excited about the work, you're excited about the rep, but it's not like a revered rep, as in, like, this person was a god and we have to
Yes.
do it this way. It's like there's a respect for what's come before and a respect for the art form, positive competition, creating environments where there can be discussions when discussions need to be had, but also there's time to work. And when
Yeah.
it's work time, we can work so that we're not combining the two so that, like, we're impeding flow. Because,
Mm,
like, sometimes there's nothing more satisfying than, like, having, like, when you're in company class and everyone's just, the conversations are always going to be happening, but when everyone's just dancing or we're doing like a full company ballet and everyone is like dialed in and focused on getting through this finale step of, like, whatever it is, whether it be Western study, symphony or serenade. I know serenade, for just from first-hand experience, it takes all of your thought process because if you're a Russian girl in that core, you are tired by the end of the ballet
yeah.
and you're just trying to push your body through. I think those are magical moments of just living and breathing as, like, one unit. So
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways that idyllic space of company already exists. It's removing some of the toxicity. I want to inspire the future artistic directors of all these companies to be inspired by dance history. Don't try to recreate it. Also, have an aware of your strengths and weaknesses and try to always remember when you were in that position
Mm,
as the dancer. I think there's a lot of people in leadership who forget
yeah.
what that felt like to be in those spaces. Has my thoughts on that.
If you could speak directly to a 15-year-old dancer, so like 15, 16,
Mhm.
feeling lost in a toxic system, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I would say, like, I'm so sorry you are experiencing this, you're feeling this way. Like, all of these feelings are completely valid and real. And there is and always will be a ton of gaslighting in this space, not only in this career, but in life. Um, but I would ask questions as to what brings you joy in this pathway. Why do you love dance? You obviously love it because you've come this far.
Yeah.
Let's spend some time focusing on the joy of it. Let's find the joy of it.
Mm,
And then once we found the joy, we can cycle back through some of the actionable changes that we can make or work through together. If it's a matter of having a conversation, maybe we can reframe that conversation now that we've found the why we do it.
yeah.
And I think it's really important to not lose sight of the why.
Yeah. Well, you are just a dynamite, and it's been such a pleasure to interview you and to pick your brain. And I just want to say to listeners, if you have not read Swan Dive, The Making of a Rogue Ballerina, please read it. Even if you're not a dancer, it is very, very captivating. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you so much for making the time and being so flexible. It was great. Thank you for making this painless.